All right. Good morning, everyone. My name is April Price with the Tri-County Regional Energy Network. Thank you very much for joining our conversation this morning. Thank you very much for your participation in the Single Family Energy Savings Program. I've had the chance to chat with a number of you, and I know that many of you are excited about what you've been able to achieve already through the single family program. And I've also really appreciated the chance to hear your opportunities for improvement. So we've heard you, and our program team has been working hard to implement some changes that we really hope will benefit you, our contractor community, the customers that you serve, and the special focus on our hard to reach customers, which are core to who we'd like to serve with 3C REN. So with that in mind, I will just go ahead and pass this over to person that we all know and appreciate very much, Tyler from Recurve. So go ahead and take it away, Tyler.
All right, thanks, April. And yep, thank you to everybody who's taking time out of your day to join us here today. Hugely appreciate your participation in the program and your willingness to devote your time and effort and resources to getting involved in the program and deliver the benefits of energy savings and incentives to the residents of the Tri-County. So like April mentioned, we've spent a lot of time working with contractors while we've been running this program, and we've learned a lot. It's a fairly new program with the structure that I think many of the folks on this call are familiar is a little bit different than standard incentive programs, and as we've designed this program and adjusted this program, it's become clear that there are a couple minor updates that we can make to the process that are going to help contractors participate successfully going forward, and that will also ensure the continued success of the program going forward. We want to make sure that it's easy and streamlined to participate in, and we also want to make sure that it exists for a long time to continue providing the benefits to your businesses and to your customers as well. So today we're going to discuss some changes that will be going into effect starting Monday, June 5th. So a brief outline, just to give a little bit of context behind how we've arrived at these changes that we'll be making. We just want to give a very brief overview of the state of the program currently, and then what we've learned from the contractor community, and then the updates that we'll be putting into place. Again, a little bit of context as to how things have been going and why we're thinking about making these changes, and then what those changes are. So very, very briefly, the state of the program at the current moment, 12 contractors have submitted at least one project into the program, and there have been 61 total projects that have been submitted overall. Again, you'll probably hear us say this a lot, but a huge thank you to all the contractors who have participated or are even working towards or considering participation. We know that it is an investment of your time and energy away from your standard business model of just serving your customers to get involved in a program like this. And without you, the customers that you're working with would not receive the great services that you provide, and our program would not be able to function. So we are incredibly appreciative to all of the contractors who have either submitted a project or are working towards submitting a project because we need you, your customers need you, and the program would not exist without you. So some brief learnings from the contractor community. Those of you who have participated and those who have been working towards participation have been very, very engaged, and we really appreciate your candor and the fact that you've shared a lot of your experiences with the program. And some of the things that we've learned in the brief time that the program has been around. Performance-based incentives can be tough to work with. If you don't know what the incentive amount is going to be, that makes it really, really challenging for you to understand the value of participating in the program. It makes it really challenging for you to pass that benefit along to your customers. That one became obvious very quickly. And as many of you know, we did change so that there is a portion of the incentive that is paid up front. With that being said, even with having upfront incentives, if a guaranteed upfront incentive is not known with certainty, specifically if there's no programmatic resource where you're able to see that incentive amount and demonstrate that to your customers. It's really difficult to talk to customers about the incentive, and it's challenging to adjust your pricing to the customers, right? If you don't know what that's going to be, or if you're not sure what it's going to be, or if you can't show it to the customer, with any amount of certainty, it makes it really difficult. That's one thing we've learned. Energy savings calculations are a big barrier to participation. Many of the folks on this call are not energy engineers. Your focus is serving your customers and doing great work, and servicing those calls that come in late, last minute, where customers need something yesterday and they want it, ASAP, and you're busy and you're focused on doing that, providing great service and serving your customers, and you're not energy engineers, and that's perfectly understandable. And so we've learned that the energy savings calculation piece of participating in this program can be a barrier to participation. Lastly, this one I think we probably all could have guessed up front. Administrative work is no fun. We don't like data entry. We certainly don't like duplicate data entry. We don't want anybody to be spending undue time dealing with a burdensome administrative process. So those are some of the things we've learned from the contractor community. We've also learned some things from some of the projects that have been submitted thus far. The 3C Ren team has partners who assist us with understanding the regulatory aspect of a program, and understanding sort of how we need to continue to ensure that incentive money is used effectively. And a couple of the things that we've learned from some of these initial projects that have been submitted. Some of the upfront incentives have been very high relative to project costs, and not all incentives are reaching customers. And I will say that about those two notes, the original design of the program really supported those two things, right? There were no upfront payments when we initially designed this program. We wanted the incentive amounts to be high for projects that delivered really, really good energy savings. And because of those two things, it wasn't necessary for all of the incentives to necessarily reach the customer, because you didn't know what those would be until a year after the project had been measured for its savings. And so when we changed to paying 50% of the incentive up front, the incentive levels that we had and the way that we're paying out incentives sort of manifested themselves the way that they did, with certain projects receiving really high upfront incentives, and with some of those incentives not getting passed along to customers. And that's completely fine, right? Everybody who was participating was following the rules of the program. However, in working with our partners on the regulatory side, this is something that we've been evaluating, and it's become clear that there are some implications of that we need to address. Learning is not really that valuable if you don't do a whole lot with it. So one change that was already made, as I've already mentioned, is that we've updated the program's incentive structure to pay 50% upfront guaranteed, not tied to measured performance. That was fantastic. We were really happy to do that, and we were especially really happy with the feedback that we received from the contractor community about that, enabling this program to be something that you could invest time in and then get something out of and use to help sell more projects and grow your business. That's exactly what we want to do. We want the customers to be served with great services and discounted project costs, but we also want the contractor community to find benefit in investing time in this. Again, it's really because of you that this program even has the opportunity to exist anyways. So we made that change, and it was great. This program is nimble, and we want to learn, and we want to get your feedback, and we want to continue to adjust the program so that we can make it successful. So because of those additional learnings that we outlined on the last two slides, we're making some more updates to the program, and that's really what we're here to talk about. Again, the program needs your support. We need it to be beneficial for you. We want to ensure that we're complying with all regulations so that the program can continue to flourish into the future. So that's why we hear you. We hear our regulatory partners. We see what's happening. And we just want this program to work and to continue to work going forward. So here is a very brief list, and we're going to go through each of these individually. And I'll do a little bit of demonstration as well of some of these so that everybody can lay some eyes on all these updates that we're making. We are in the process of finalizing updates to the program portal website. So that's the demandflexmarket.com website where you submit projects. We're adding in a pre-approval process for all projects. Talk a lot more about that. We will implement a formal mechanism to get assistance with energy savings calculations. A lot of the contractors that are participating in the program have been very active working with me to do that anyways, and I should say, and because of the success that we've seen with that, we want to create a formal pathway for that to be done through the program for any contractor. We are in the process of finalizing updated program forms and a streamlined project enrollment process. That's on that data entry administrative side of things. We want to make that as easy as possible, And then there are some incentive caps and incentive pass-throughs that we need to make that we're going to be discussing at the end as well. Okay, so first and foremost, the demandflexmarket.com 3CREN web portal has been updated. It's not live yet. It'll go live on June 5th when all of these processes go live. But it's mostly finished, and I can demo that with you today. But really, the key takeaways are we just want to make it as useful as possible. We don't want any fluff in there that's not useful. We don't want it to be confusing. We want it to be easy to navigate. So we want to make sure that the information is clear and helpful, like who is eligible and how does payment work, right? Those are the key pieces of information that you need in order to successfully participate in this program. The website should reflect that. We want you to have access to all the program resources in one consolidated location. That's fairly self-explanatory. And we want the website itself to guide you through the project submission process and be very intuitive. It's like when you get an iPhone or any smartphone probably these days, and you take it out of the box and it just tells you exactly how to use it straight away. We want our web portal to really be like that. If you have questions about how to submit a project, the online project submission portal should really tell you exactly how to do that. And that's what we're angling towards here. So here's a couple of slides. These are mostly just for the sake of posterity, and we'll be sharing the slide deck. I'm going to live demo this in just a second, but as you can see here, I have on the bottom the navigation bar and some of the pieces of information that we have highlighted front and center on the website to make it more intuitive and helpful. Links to a variety of helpful resources all in one place for you as well. And then an outline of the intuitive updated project enrollment process here. And so let me just double check here. Yep, I am going to hop off of presentation mode, and I'm going to very, very briefly just demo this. So this is what the program demandflexmarket.com 3CREN webpage is going to look like. At the top, there's a nav bar, program overview, enroll projects, program resources, all very useful, all very self-explanatory. If you need details about the program, there's an overview on this program overview page, information about eligibility, information about incentives, the guaranteed upfront incentives, the performance-based incentives, the incentive multipliers, everything that is going to impact the amount of incentive that a particular project gets, payments and how payments work, all here laid out very clearly for you. A program resources page or all of the resources that you'll need. Now, these have not been uploaded and embedded, but things like creating and updating your contractor listing on the provider page, getting set up as a vendor with Frontier so you can receive incentive payments, collateral like the flyers, et cetera, all here in one place. Very easy to access, very intuitive. And then the project enrollment page here, very clearly outlining exactly what the process is, very clearly stating exactly how it works, and then giving you links so that you can do that. And we'll dive into the enrollment process in a little bit once we get there. But the key here is that we really wanted to strip away the fluff and make this as useful as possible for the contractors who are participating in the program, so that hopefully, the resource that you have, which is the website here, along with the other resources, but they're all in one place, and they all basically tell you exactly what you need to know to be successful in the program. So June 5th, this will be live, and we'll be sharing the links and the URLs and everything like that once they're finalized. The second change, and probably one of the more significant changes that we're going to review today, is the addition of a pre-approval process. And this was done You know, based on what we learned and the feedback that we received from the contractor community, you know, and a couple of other reasons, but really specifically, the main thing that we routinely heard was, you know, hey, is there any way for me to validate what that upfront incentive is going to be to my customers? Is there anything I can show my customer so that they'll know what that is? Is there anything that I can see that will validate what that number is for myself so that I have confidence that if I discount the project to my customer, I will receive that money on the back end? The existing process that we had only had one formal step, which was the final enrollment of the project after the project had been installed. Now, you know, the way that the program was initially designed with all of the incentives being performance-based, it made a lot of sense to have it that way. But once we moved the 50% of the incentive to be paid upfront, it became clear that in addition of a pre-approval step, so that one, we would know exactly what that incentive amount was on every single job, so that you would know what that incentive amount was on every single job was really important. And so that you had something that you could hold on to, so you had some assurance and that you could show your customers. So going forward, all projects will have to be submitted for pre-approval prior to installation. When you do that, and I'll go into a little bit more detail on some of these finer points here, when you do that, you're going to receive a pre-approval packet that validates eligibility of a site. It's going to validate your upfront incentive amount, and you're also going to receive back pre-filled project application that you'll really just have to have your customer sign and then submit after the project has been installed. So it may feel like we're adding another step that's going to be an additional administrative burden, but really we want to simplify the process and then provide back to you essentially a pre-filled application to reduce any kind of data entry that you have to do. And then all you have to do is go get that signed and then submit it on the back end once the project is installed. This is really designed to make it, you know, more known up front, more assurance up front, and then easier on the back end to get everything submitted. So in order to receive pre-approval, you're simply going to submit project information along with copies of utility bills. We need the utility bills to validate the eligibility. We need the project information, obviously, for the sake of the incentive, because incentives are unique to each project. Speaking of energy savings calculations, this is one thing, again, that we learned was a big barrier to participation, was requiring energy savings calculations. And we began to offer assistance to contractors on this in an informal way, where we would ask for particular pieces of information, such as, you know, copies of utility bills that showed historical usage and details about the project so that we could help. And it became clear that offering that service enabled participation at a much higher volume and made it a lot easier for the contractor community. And so what we want to do, what we wanted to do and what we are doing is creating a formal mechanism through the program where you can get that assistance. So when you submit a project for pre-approval, you're going to have two options. You're going to have the option to either submit your own energy savings calculations if you know how to do it and you're comfortable with it and you just want to cruise, or you can submit project information like many of you have already done, so that the program can help you calculate energy savings. And that required information, again, utility bills, the specific pages with those historical usage graphs, incredibly helpful for us to calibrate an energy savings estimate. Basic details about the home, age, location, how many people live there, and then basic details about your project, energy usage specs, like, you know, SEER rating on an HVAC unit or AFUE of a furnace, or coefficient of performance on a heat pump, for example. Model numbers are ideal. And many of you who have already been working with me on this, you kind of already have a feel for what pieces of information are required. So here is just a brief look at that form. And again, we'll hop back into the portal and I'll demo this very briefly. But when you're submitting a project for pre-approval, there's a button you see here that you'll be able to click. Do you have an energy savings estimate for your project, or would you like help generating a savings estimate? If you click, I already have a savings estimate, you'll be able to just attach your document that you already have. Or if you click, I need help, we'll prompt you to provide the correct information and attach the utility bill so that we can help you do it. We really, really, really want this program to be a program that you like participating in and that you don't feel like is too complex or too complicated. And we want to provide the support to do that. And that's exactly what we're trying to do here. So when you submit a project for pre-approval, we'll review everything, help you with the energy savings calculations if you request it, or simply look at yours. And you are going to receive back a pre-approval packet. The most important aspects of that, and here on the right-hand side, I just have a version of this pre-approval packet here. We're actually still finalizing this document, so it'll look a lot like this. It may be slightly different when we finally roll out these changes on June 5th. But what the pre-approval packet is going to have, it's really two main things: validation of an upfront incentive amount and eligibility that's going to be right on the cover page. So you see there on the right-hand side, project details and information, and then eligibility, the measures, and the upfront incentive amount. The very key pieces about your project, right? Validated for you and for your customers. The second thing that you're going to receive is a pre-filled project application so that your customer simply needs to sign. And then you submit that on the back end. So all the data entry about total costs and customer costs and various pieces of information, we're going to pre-populate as much information as we can based on the information that you submit right onto this this project application, which we'll look at in just a second, and then you simply have to sign it. So getting pre-approval will make the final submission much more streamlined, along with providing you with really good information up front. Necessarily, along with these changes in process, are updated program forms and online enrollment forms. This is a really busy slide here. The really key pieces of information. A lot of the data points that you were entering on your computer when you were enrolling a project have been removed from that online project submission portal. And the information that we need is on the updated program forms that we'll talk about in just a second. Or if it's information that already exists, perhaps in your invoice or your energy savings estimate, we're not going to ask you for it a second time because we already have it, right? So we want to remove as much information that's duplicate as possible and as much information from that online enrollment form as possible. Now, the two forms that everybody who submitted a project is familiar with, the data authorization and project completion forms, those have been combined into one with a few additional pieces of data that we've removed from the online form. They've been combined into one. We're calling that now, that's going to be considered the project application, right? So instead of some of the application being on the project completion form and some of the application being on the online enrollment form and some of the information about the application being on data authorization form, all of it is going to be on this, in this packet that we're going to be calling project application. And when you submit a project for pre-approval, again, you're going to receive that project application that is specific to that particular project, pre-filled with most of the project data. So we're going to glean that off the information that you submit to us and populate it in that form with the incentive amount right back to you. So all you have to do is get that signed by your customer. Probably a little bit easier to see all of this in action than just to talk about it. So I'm going to pull, again, this is a draft version. That's very close to what the final version is going to look like, but it may be slightly different. This is really just to illustrate what this is going to look like. The cover page is going to be, some basic information about the project, about eligibility, electric eligibility, gas eligibility, the measures, the savings. You'll be able to present this directly to your customer. You can show them. If you look at their bill, you can see their utility rate. You can say, hey, the program thinks you're going to save, or we think you're going to save, or together with the program, we think that this project is going to save, 1,200 kWh. And hey, based on your utility rate, that yields, XYZ annual dollars in savings, right? More information for you to talk to your customer about here. Right here in this big, long rectangular box, that's going to be the upfront incentive amount right there. So you know what it is, and so that you can present it directly to your customers and they know exactly what it is. And then this is going to look, some of this is going to look familiar, but this is the, previously this was the project completion form and the data authorization form, now combined into one larger form that we will pre-populate for you after you submit for pre-approval, that has basic details about your project. So you do not have to go ahead and enter those in again. It's already going to be there for you. The measures, the start date, the completion date, the incentive. This looks familiar. You'll have to have your customers fill this survey out still. That's a CPUC requirement. The attestations, these should all look familiar. The last page here is the energy data authorization that many of you are familiar with. We'll pre-populate this with your company name, Gone will be the days of me reviewing your project and saying, it looks like you missed your name on one of these, or you missed the SAID here for your electric account. These will all be pre-populated for you. You'll simply just need to get signatures from your customer. So a little bit of extra work up front, but a very, very streamlined process on the back end, because we're going to be pre-filling all of this information for you. And the other piece here is that, again, we've removed a lot of the duplicate data entry that existed on the program web portal. It's gone. It's all either in your invoice, in your energy savings calculations, or in that project application. We don't need you to retype it in. Oftentimes what that led to was that maybe there was an inconsistency where something was entered incorrectly, and then we had to reach out to you and say, hey, the cost on here doesn't match the cost on here. We've removed the opportunity for that to happen. So when you submit a project for pre-approval, you'll see we just need some very basic information about who you are, who your company is, so we can identify you, who your customer is, so that we can have some sort of unique identifier for this project, all of the factors that go into the incentive multiplier, copy of a gas bill, copy of an electric bill, and then the opportunity to either say, no, I already have savings, or I need help with energy savings here. And then you can provide information on your project. Really, really simple pieces of information. And then when you go to finally enroll your project, what you're going to see is it's all also very, very simple here. Your name, your customer's name, attachments, acknowledgements, submit. No data entry. It's all in the form. We don't need you to submit it again. So simplification, making it easy, providing the right information up front, and really having the process that the program follows catch up with some of the changes that we've already instituted. That's really what we're trying to do here. That's really the result that we're hoping to see. To recap, submit information before your project install has started. Get help with energy savings calculations if you need help. Get a validated upfront incentive amount. Get validation on whether your site is eligible for gas or electric incentives, or both. And get a project application pre-filled to streamline enrollment. Hopefully, everybody on this call and everybody who watches this into the future, because this is going to be recorded, feels like these are good changes that are going to help you get the information that you need and participate as easily as possible. That's really what we're going for here. Now, lastly, April, I see you came back on camera. Did you have a clarifying comment or a question?
Yeah, this came up from Leslie Allen in the chat as well. Just thinking about, do we have an estimate for the timeline for this pre-approval process?
Yeah, the goal is going to be 24-hour turnaround. In the same way that many of the folks who have been working with me on getting energy savings estimates put together, I try to do those for you same day if possible, but 24 hours usually, or I should say 1 business day if it happens to fall on a Friday. But yep, hopefully 1 business day will be the turnaround time.
Great. So within 1 business day, you'll have a completed application that will say, yes, this customer is eligible, and this is exactly how much of an upfront incentive you will receive as long as the project stays the same.
Correct.
Okay, thanks.
Yep. Great question. Thank you for asking that. Now, the last thing, and this is so that we can continue to offer this program going forward. Like I mentioned previously, some of the upfront incentives that have been paid out vastly exceeded project costs. That is something that we have been informed that we need to just be mindful of. It's not a problem that happened. It happened because of the natural change that was made to our program from a fully performance-based program to a sort of a hybrid, guaranteed incentive program plus a performance-based program. We just need to be mindful of this, and these are changes that need to be made. So going forward, the total, and this is starting June 5th, any project submitted June 5th or after. Going forward, total incentive for a project, so that the total upfront plus the performance is going to be capped at 150% of project costs. Okay, that's still, hopefully everyone feels this way. That's still really, really great. That still leaves the opportunity for a tremendous incentive If your job costs $20,000 to deliver to your customer and there's $30,000 of incentive that comes back to you, that's pretty good. Since the upfront incentives equal 50% of the total incentives, or the total forecasted incentive anyways, the upfront incentives now are necessarily going to be capped at 75% of the project costs. We'll validate that with invoices, the same way we've been validating project costs previously. The full upfront incentives must be passed along to customers and shown as a line item on the final invoices. Now, again, we know that this is a departure from the way that the program has been operating, but we have been informed that this is really, really important to make sure that these incentives, especially the upfront incentives, now the performance-based incentives, we want that to be a bonus to your business if your projects perform really well. That's what we want. We want you as contractors doing great energy efficiency work and actually delivering those energy savings to reap the benefits of that on the back end. But that upfront incentive, we have been instructed that it's really, really important that reaches the customer. And so that must be passed along to the customer in full and shown as a line item on invoices. Now, with that said, with the new pre-approval process, you are going to have assurance of what that upfront incentive amount is for yourself and for your customer. And we hope that lends some confidence to you to do that. But it's really, really important that upfront incentive goes to benefit the customer and discount the cost of the job to the customer. From a spirit of the program, that's really, we want customers to receive the benefits of these incentives. And we want contractors to do so too. We hope that drives down the cost of your projects and enables you to sell more projects. A 75% incentive upfront is a really great incentive. And then, the performance-based incentive on the back end, just a bonus to your business that you're not obligated to pass along, that you're going to get on the back end for good performing projects. Now, the incentive levels themselves, the way that we're figuring incentives, the way that we're calculating incentives, and the incentive levels themselves, that's not changing at all. We're simply just putting a cap in place relative to project costs. So to recap, these changes are going into effect Monday, June 5th. Projects can be submitted via the existing process until that date. And with that, I would love to open it up to any questions or comments that anybody who has so graciously taken time out of your day to attend has for us.
Tyler, if I can jump in here quickly, I would just
Yes, please do.
Thanks for all the updates. I'd just like to reiterate that, you presented this 150% cap, and I just like to make it clear that is not going to affect the vast majority of projects that have been submitted. Most of the projects that we've seen are under that level. We're just catching those projects on the really far extreme that have been really, really high. So just in case that particular element raised some concern, for most folks, for the majority of projects, it's not going to be a change in the incentive amount. And I think I saw a hand raised. Let's see. Someone just wants to come off mute. I'm having a hard time seeing who that was.
I do see one in the chat. Do you have data points related to the energy savings in dollars when comparing the same saved therm usage and added kWh? We don't currently have the full set of data from the utilities to begin measuring energy savings, and as soon as we do get that, we will have data. And any project that anybody has submitted where you've done electrification, you will certainly be able to see what that actually looks like in reality, hopefully in the very near future. The conversations are progressing nicely in terms of getting the data and operationalizing it for the sake of providing that information to the contractors. So yeah, that's really the extent of it. Hopefully the incentive structure whereby if you're doing an electrification project, the value of kWh additional load has been reduced so that the value of therm reduction can still generate really great incentive values for you on that upfront payment. And you know, we really hope to see really great numbers on those electrification projects. If you're removing a gas burning appliance from a home, it'd be pretty darn hard not to actually save that energy on the gas side. And it would be interesting to see the electric increase as well. So looking forward to having that data and being able to discuss that in more detail. And I see another one here, seems pretty straightforward. All upfront goes to customer and the project costs need to be calculated. I'm sorry, the project cost needs to be calculated to ensure not above 150% of incentive. Yep, that's pretty much it. Yep, exactly. Appreciate that. Reaffirming. We hope that it's pretty simple and straightforward, and hope that it works. You know, for everybody who's on this call, for everybody's business model. And if you have any questions about it too, you know, certainly open to you know, if you want to just give me a call and talk through your questions and concerns about it off of this forum, you're certainly more than willing to give me a call. I'm happy to discuss any implications you think this might have for your business. And I see Leslie, I see your hand is up.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Oh, my question's about the SAID.
Yep.
So my understanding of the process, at least I thought the process before, was that you first put your SAID in to make sure something's eligible, and then you submit later. So you're saying we don't need to do that step anymore?
Yeah. So again, without having the full set of utility data in place, the tool to run an SAID through that eligibility tool, that functionality is not available for the program. And so what we've been doing in the interim is preliminarily accepting any project that has either electric service through PG&E or SoCal Edison to qualify for electric incentives, and any site that has gas through SoCal Gas or PG&E to qualify for gas incentives. And so that tool will still be linked on the updated web page, you know, and once we have data, you'll still be able to do that. But essentially what we're doing now is we're taking the burden of the contractor needing to validate eligibility on their own off of your plate. So you'll submit the information to us about the project, including the gas and electric bills, which will have the SAIDs on them, and then we'll validate it for you in the process of doing pre-approval, because the previous methodology left the opportunity for you maybe not to do that or not to double check. And then after you submit the project to learn that it's not eligible, we'll validate that essentially for you on your behalf up front going forward.
That's great. And just to follow up on that, because we've had a couple instances now already where the SAID was shown to not be found. And the follow-up website says PG&E will get back to us in 2 to 4 weeks. So I'm just, that's why I wanted to double check. Do you expect then that, is this process, is the 24-hour turnaround time that you're aiming for going to fall off to 2 to 4 weeks if the SAID is not showing?
No, we do not. Nope.
Great.
We expect to be able to get your results within 24 hours. Yep.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Are we getting the recording and slides of this presentation? Yes, absolutely. Yep. This is recorded and we're going to send this out. And in addition to that, one of our goals is to ensure that prior to June 5th, everything going live, we sort of create, maybe a brief document of the changes, comprehensive list of the changes, and maybe any impacts or implications, and resources for you that we'll send out to all of our registered providers, so that you have everything that you need beforehand to be prepared for this, and resources you can turn to help you answer any questions as well. Okay, I don't see any additional questions currently in the chat. Any other questions that are lingering out there? Let's see, will there be any foreseeable changes to efficiency metrics for heat pump systems? No, I don't think so. No. I think that as far as this program is concerned, we're going to use, the information that is provided about the equipment that exists on site, and the information that is provided about the equipment that's going in, and the information that we receive from the utility bills to calibrate an energy savings estimate that's as reasonable as possible. Or you can do that as well, which then we'll double check. And that's really what's going to dictate how we factor, the predicted energy savings, and therefore the predicted, or I should say the predicted all-in incentive and the guaranteed upfront incentive as well. Anybody else? Anything else lingering in anybody's minds? Any questions that you would ask if you might have a question to ask at this particular junction in time? Okay, well, April, I'll turn it over to you for any closing comments that you'd like to make before we break. But again, thank you everybody for your time. I know sitting on a webinar for about an hour at the beginning of your day is maybe not the ideal way to be spending your time. It's not out there with your customers. It's not out there quoting jobs, etc. So we hugely appreciate you taking the time out here to join us and to learn about this. And again, hugely appreciate all your hard work and investment in the program and helping us make a successful program. So April, I'll turn it over to you to close.
Great. And just lingering for any last chance questions. I think you summarized it well, Tyler. So on behalf of 3C Run, thank you very much for joining. Again, Tyler's a great resource for your questions, and you're used to talking to him. But if you have other questions that you'd like 3C Run more broadly to know about, or me as the program director at 3C Run, I put my email in the chat. Happy to talk to you in addition to Tyler. So please feel free to reach out. And I don't see any last minute questions. So I'll let you get back to your day and take care all. Bye-bye.